Thank you for tuning in to our monthly Community Safety and Security Live Forum, brought to you in partnership with the Area 3 Police, comprised in Clarendon, Manchester, and St. Elizabeth divisions. We have on board our sponsor, National Self-Serve Wholesale in Maypen, Clarendon. Thank you so much for making this possible, National Self-Serve Wholesale. And we are focusing on protecting our children in this forum. And joining us is a team of experts from various institutions. We have the Child Protection and Family Services Agency, CPFSA for short. We also have our Domestic Violence Intervention Center, the Ministry of Education, Skills, Youth and Information, still wrapping my tongue around that one, Region 5, and we also have the Southern Regional Health Authority joining us for this awesome conversation, and we're hoping to provide our parents with a guide in navigating social media, bullying, abuse, mental wellness, and much more in just 1 hour. And so here's what's going to happen. We're going to have 4 segments where each of our experts will share, and we ask that you, as usual, you share your comments, indicate where you're joining us from, note your questions, and we'll do a Q&A at the end of the discussions from each forum. So I'll guide the discussions accordingly so the representatives can respond. And already we have JP Booth, we have Sir Carr joining us. I know that he's not on the island, so he's joining us from overseas. Lisa Fagan, Malachi James, Nadine Dunkley, Evadne Smith, and others. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're new to this space, I am Winsome Sharia-Witter, executive producer and host here at Serenity Resource Connector. We have a lot to cover, so we are going to get right into our discussions. And to get the conversation off, we're going to start with navigating social media and peer influence with the Child Protection and Family Services Agency Children's Officer, Kimia Brown-Reed. Welcome, Lady Reed.
Thank you so much for having me, Mrs. Witter. It's a pleasure to be here.
Same here. So let's help our parents to understand. There are so many influences, social media. How do we see social media influencing children's behavior today? And what specific challenges are parents facing as a result?
All right. So in the work that I do, I think that social media, the influence of social media is a double-edged sword, where there are positives and there are also negatives. So the positive would be it can be used as a tool for education, helping them academically. We also see that they're able to express their creativity on social media, and some of them, they have been able to earn an income, and they also remain connected with their friends. But with the good, there's also bad. And so the negatives that we have seen is that especially at school, there is a reduced attention span. So because they're getting used to the quick bites and the short form content from TikTok and Instagram, we find that their attention span is not focused for long periods. And so they look for gratification in shortened version. They don't have the patience, especially as it relates to their schoolwork. We're also seeing issues with their mental health and their self-esteem. You know, constant exposure to idealized images, filtered realities, whatever social media puts out, we find that our children absorb, and then they start to compare themselves to other persons, and this affects their self-esteem and how they view their bodies and their concept of their body image. And studies have shown that this would have led to anxiety in our children, depression, unhealthy body images. And so those are some of the negative influences. We're also seeing issues with cyberbullying and peer pressure. Social media opened the door where you can bully somebody even when they are not online. You speak negatively about them. You share your unfiltered opinions. You harass them sometimes. Sometimes the children are pressured to, comply with certain trends and to get a lot of likes. But sometimes these behaviors are harmful to them. And so social media has been negative in that regard. We also see where they have exposure to inappropriate content. Sometimes our children access materials or get messages from strangers, and these can lead to risky behaviors. Sometimes they put themselves or their families' lives at risk. And we know that sometimes our children go missing, they are lured away, they find themselves in dangerous situations, and unfortunately sometimes they die. The social media also impact how they relate to their friends in real life, because they are used to seeing them in the social spaces. They are not able to carry a conversation. They are not able to speak or to say how they're actually feeling. They're used to sending an emoji or to use a shortened form, everything govern, good man. But you find that they are not able to carry a conversation and to speak explicitly how they feel. Now, as it relates to the challenges that the parents face, they struggle with managing screen time for their children. Sometimes they don't know if this is enough. Is the child getting too much? Sometimes they use the screens as a means to quiet the children so they too can get a break from, the stresses of life. We also find that they have challenges monitoring the content that the children have access to. Sometimes parents themselves, they don't know how to censor the content. They don't know how to put in the different controls for the children. And so you find that our children have access to mature content. And, children live what they learn. So, they find that they're acting it out. Sometimes the parents also find it difficult to speak to their child about cyberbullying, to know what is happening, because they are trying not to break the relationship. So they are trying to be sensitive. And so it becomes harder for them to detect if the child is being bullied sometimes, because they themselves don't know what to look for. We also find that our children, they love the trend, they love the spray ground, they love the kickers, they love the clocks, they love everything that social media has to offer. But these pressures can lead to risky behaviors, and we have to be careful as parents to spot these things so we can safeguard our children, especially as they use social media.
Right. That's a good place there in terms of spotting. So, what are some of the signs that parents should watch for to know if their child is struggling with social media related stress or peer pressure? As peer pressure is no longer just in school, but we have to grapple with it with the online. So, share with
In
us.
the digital space. And
Yeah.
that's so true. And my advice to parents would be just look for changes in your child. So, what kind of changes we're talking about? We're talking about mood changes in their mood, their general disposition, their affect. If your child was usually outspoken, outgoing, now you're seeing that they're becoming withdrawn, they're becoming very irritable. Look for those changes. So, the mood swings, the things they used to enjoy is no longer enjoyable for them. Look for physical signs of stress. They're having frequent headaches, stomach aches, complaints of feeling unwell, and there is no apparent cause for these illnesses. Look for trouble sleeping. Sometimes they're having nightmares. Sometimes, they feel anxious or overstimulated by using the device too much. They're on social media too much. Look for changes in their appetite. They are not eating as they should, or sometimes they're eating too much. Look for how well they change in terms of their social interactions, how they navigate social situations. Sometimes they used to be outgoing. They like to have times with their friends. Now you're seeing that they are withdrawing from social events. They're avoiding their friends. Sometimes they would have disagreements with their friends and they don't want to talk to that friend. They start to change accounts. They start to change the platform. They want different things to happen as it relates to the social space, and they become isolated. Look for signs such as obsessive use of social media. They're always on it. You can't get a word in edgewise. You can't find the child. It's that the child is locked away with their phone or with a device. Look for those signs. Look for drastic changes in their academic performance. Sometimes their grades will fall because they are not focused on what they are doing at school, but instead they are focused on what it is that is happening on social media. We
Okay.
also need to look for issues with self-esteem, because if our children have, sometimes because of the influences of cyberbullying, they have low self-esteem, and you find that they're comparing themselves to the persons on social media. They compare how they look, they compare the size of their different body parts. There's this thing called the dolly syndrome. They want to look like the dolly them, and so you find that they are no longer comfortable with how they appear, but they want to go and look like somebody on social media instead of accepting their own body image. So those are some of the warning signs you have to look for as parents. What I found too as a social worker with the CPFSA, sometimes you see changes in how they spend money or their spending habits. So sometimes you'll find that they're requesting money now to buy certain things that weren't usually things that they had interest in. So you find that they want to keep up with the trends of the influencers. They want money to buy things online and, to look like their friends or a certain group of friends. So those are like warning signs you can look for as parents whenever your children are using social media and it is negatively influencing them.
Right. So with all of this, as parents, we have to set some healthy boundaries. So how can we effectively set and enforce these boundaries around social media usage? Are there any specific strategies that you recommend?
Yes, yes. As parents, we have to ensure that we are employing certain boundaries for our children. We have to set clear usage rules as it relates to social media. So, probably at home, what you can do is to have designated no screen zones. That will help them to come off social media somewhat and come back into reality. So, probably at home, the dining room, for example, there is no need for a child to be eating and watching a device or being on social media. You want them to be focused and engaged and aware of what is happening at dinner time. You probably want to make the bedrooms a no device zone. You also want to encourage them to have face to face interaction with you. I always say lead by example. So if you are a parent who is always on your phone, your child is always going to be on their phone. So if you want your child to come off social media and to spend some time and establish and deepen the relationship you have with your child, lead by example. Put down your phone so they can put down their phone, because the children that we have, they are first going to judge you and bring you up to standard before they fall in line. So,
Yes.
they are oftentimes correcting you as well. Mommy, but you're always on your phone. Daddy, you don't have no screen zone. So you always have to lead by example. And I always say, have conversations with your children. Sometimes when they are young, they tend to talk a lot, but as they mature and get older, you find that they enter this zone of secrecy. But if you make yourself available to your children so they can come and have discussions with you, then you find that when things changes, you're able to explain why we have to put in place this boundary, why there is a rule as it relates to this. Talk openly about social media, the influences of social media, both the good and the bad, so your child will be able to make a decision whenever they are placed in a situation that may put them at risk or in harm's way. We also say teach them, help your kids to understand what is fake from what is real. Social media is fake. We have filters. They edit the photos. They are staged. It's not realistic images of the persons themselves. So you need to teach them, question them. Is this what you want to portray? Is there value in this filter? So let them know they're aware and they're able to make a decision as it relates to what they put out and what they absorb in the social media space. And also as parents, you can set guidelines too. You know, you're not allowed to post pictures of your body parts. You're not allowed to show your private parts. You're not allowed to make videos of yourself. Those are the conversations we want to have, because whether or not we planned on having social media infiltrate our life, it is here and it is here to stay. So we need to just enforce the boundaries.
Yes, and that means that we got to get digitally literate. So how can parents help their children navigate online friendships and peer influences safely? Are there ways to teach our children to identify harmful interactions online?
Just as how you teach your child to be aware of interactions in real life, you need to teach them to be aware of interactions online. So teach them about online friends as opposed to real life friends. Let them understand that there is a difference. You know, discuss how online friends can feel real, but they are sometimes not giving you the true information. So probably they are not the real friends, you know. Help them understand that people online do not always present their true selves. They can be filtered, you know. Encourage them to strike a balance. Emphasize the importance of maintaining offline friendships while you maintain healthy online friendships. Speak to them about sharing information safely. You want to set limits on the personal information that they share online. So you want to tell them, don't share personal details about yourself. Do not give your full name. Do not share your address. Do not share the name of your school or to take photos in your school uniform, because those are identifiers. So if someone truly wants to harm you, they will look for those things to get them closer to you. Make sure that nobody knows your password, not even your friends. And encourage them. Sometimes they have passwords on their devices to protect themselves, but in the end, their information gets shared and personal photos get disseminated in different groups. So you want to encourage them to keep their passwords secret. Discuss red flags with them as it relates to the digital space. You know, explain signs of inappropriate and unsafe behavior, such as somebody asking you for a picture. Me get a picture, you know, me want to see your look. And sometimes it's not just the photo they want a photo of you in a certain position, doing a certain pose. You know, that is a red flag for you. So you should steer clear of that person. Don't allow Speak to them about feeling guilty whenever they don't comply with the trends that are happening. You know, that is you keeping yourself safe. Practice saying no. You need to have a session, a sit down time with them, you practice with them to say no. And what are they saying no to? No to sharing their information that should be kept confidential. No to requests that makes them feel uncomfortable from strangers, from whether men or women, boys and girls. Whatever requests they get that make them feel uncomfortable, tell them to say no. And sometimes as parents, we need to role play, because this is not an everyday conversation. It's not like, hi mommy, how are you? I am well. They know how to respond. But when they're faced with the new circumstances and new situation, sometimes they don't know how to respond appropriately. So if you role play with your children, then they are now able to answer whenever they are presented with these situations, to answer appropriately and to shut it down. Always be a safe space for your child. So regardless of whether or not it's bullying online or it's bullying at school or something that is happening in your child's life that made them feel unsafe, always be a safe space. Know that the child is confident that they can come to you and talk to you about whatever interaction it is that is making them feel uncomfortable. And don't forget to check in with them. Not just walk on, you all right, how was school today? But have meaningful conversations with your children. You know, what happened online today? Do you have any online friends? What can you tell me about this game? What game are you into? You know, as parents, we need to do away with me. No, so I'm not interested. We are far past that. We need to be involved and interested in the interests of our children.
Wow. Don't worry if you missed some of that. You want to stay tuned for the recap. We have a blog recap each Monday on the Serenity Resource Connector website. so you'll be able to catch the highlights from this discussion. So as we wrap this segment on navigating social media and peer influences, let's share some resources. This is the resource connector. So what resources or tools are available to help parents monitor their child's social media use in a balanced way without infringing on trust?
And privacy, because our children love to talk about their right to privacy.
Even as young as 5.
I know.
Yes.
All right. So sometimes there are several resources available to us as parents. And what comes to mind is the parent control apps that you can find them on all the devices your children own. So what the app does, it allows parents to set screen time limits. So if it is that you want your child to watch YouTube for probably 45 minutes, you'll set that limit. And after 45 minutes, the child will no longer have access to YouTube. You can use it to block certain apps on the child's device. It schedules device free time. So there's a cutoff, and it would normally say your screen time has ended. You will get additional time in another 4 hours or so. So as parents, you can use that to really control what happens on social media. You also have to, if you've given permission for your child to have a TikTok account or a Instagram account, there are family safety mode embedded in that device or in that app. So what you do, both platforms offer settings where parents can go and link their account to their child's account. And the parents can set a daily screen time limit for the children and also access private messages that they may get from persons on these platforms. And if your child, I know that almost every child have access to YouTube, because if they're babies, they like Coco Melon, and as they get older, you find that they change to whatever is in now for that age group. Their YouTube have a restricted mode. And what it does, it restricts adults from accessing or restrict the adult content from going to your child's YouTube page. And so you want to tap into those built-in controls so you can limit and restrict the type of content that your child has access to. And if all that fails and you don't remember, you can always call 211 or visit any of the CPFSA parish offices, where we'll be more than willing to assist you in implementing some of these controls so that you can have a better relationship with your children as they navigate social media.
All right. And that's a good place to wrap on this segment on navigating social media and peer influence. Kimia Brown-Reed from the CPFSA makes room for our next guest, our panelist. See you in a little while, Kimia. All right. We have joining us now our JCF Domestic Violence Intervention Center Island Coordinator, Corporal Javarn Brown. Welcome, Corporal Brown.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited about this conversation.
All right. And we have quite a bit to talk about in terms of handling domestic violence and abuse.
Right.
So let's get right into it, starting with some of the indicators that a child or family may be affected by domestic violence. And what should parents do if they notice these signs in their own family or others?
All right. So let me just start by defining who a child is. And so under the Child Care and Protection Act, a child is defined as a person under the age of 18 years. And so there are some indicators to look for in a child to know whether or not they are being abused or other family members. And so I'll just start with the child. And there are behavioral changes, there are physical signs, and there are also emotional indicators. So for the physical signs now, you'll have sudden withdrawal or isolation from friends and activities, increased aggression or outbursts of anger, a difficulty concentrating in school or declining academic performance, fearfulness or anxiety, or being overly alert. So for the physical signs, you have unexplained bruises, cuts, or injuries. complaints of physical ailments such as stomach aches and you know headaches. And then you'll have now signs of neglect such as poor hygiene or malnutrition. So for the emotional indicators now, low self-esteem or feeling of worthlessness, difficulty trusting others or forming friendships or relationships, expression of guilt or shame, for family issues, for the issues that they're having within their family. Now, for the adults, and so we how we treat children, we treat adults separately. And so for the adults, a parent or caregiver who isolates their partner or children from others. This is one clear sign. This is an indication that they are being abused. And most persons would not want to say that they are being abused. Most persons are not vocal about being abused. So there are some signs that you have to look for. And most times, we say that we don't want to, assume anything, but sometimes the indicators will tell the story without them saying a word. So signs of controlling behavior over family members, frequent arguments or visible tension in the household. The physical signs, now injuries with unconvincing explanation. So you will see somebody, with a bruise over the eye, and you ask them, "Oh, it's not nothing, man." They try most times to play it off. Display of fear when a specific individual is around. And so, what should be done? What should be done? The question is asked, what should be done? So, the Jamaica Constabulary Force has 10 domestic violence intervention centers across the island that seeks to take reports, investigate domestic violence related matters, refer to the other stakeholders that we work with, and to do follow ups in most cases. Well, in all cases, follow ups are done. And for the child, while the JCF will appreciate the report, will listen, but all matters relating to children, or they are referred to the CPFSA. And so my colleague online will say to you that the JCF is not responsible for investigating matters relating abuse of children. And so if there are criminal elements, if there are criminal offenses attached to the abuse, then we'll take control. But largely, it is a CPFSA that deals with children. And so there are other stakeholders that we work with. And from time to time, what we do during the investigation process, during the follow-up process or the referral process, is that we, constantly engage our stakeholders to reach out to them to see if they can help, to protect the citizens or the victims of domestic violence in the country. So the CPFSA is one stakeholder. Women's Center of Jamaica is one. The Victim Services Unit is also another stakeholder that we work closely with, and the Bureau of Gender Affairs. I want to say tonight that we realize that there is a stigma around men being abused, and so for the most part, time gone by, men would not want to come forward to say that they are being abused. But now there is a specific desk assigned that deals with abuse of men, and so it is the men's help desk or the helpline that deals specifically with reports of men. Largely in Jamaica, when you talk about domestic violence, it is only associated with females, but that notion is incorrect. And so we have different stakeholders. The domestic violence intervention centers are doing a marvelous job in curtailing and sensitizing the public about the effects of domestic violence.
Indeed. So we heard quite a bit there. But in terms of talking to our children, how can parents have open, age-appropriate conversations with children about abuse and their rights, particularly if the child may have witnessed or experienced violence?
All right. So, child, like I said, it is, any person under 18 years old. And so I feel like the conversation needs to be tailored according to the child's age, because you know that you can't, and development, you can't, there are certain conversations that you wouldn't have with a 3 to 7 year old versus a 13 plus. And so the overall atmosphere or environment is that you should create a safe and supportive environment. Choose the right time and the place. Oftentimes, let me just elaborate on this. Oftentimes, we tend to want to rush people into telling their story, and so it might not be the appropriate time to speak about these issues. And so give them time to relax and think about what happened. And so now, as a parent, you can create that safe space. And I tell parents, your child should find you or see you as a safe place. It means that there is nothing that they will withhold from you. So be calm and reassuring. And so it is not an opportunity to say, hey, go beat because XY, all the things that are happening with you. So be calm, reassuring, listen actively. And so listen to everything that they are saying. And I say to parents, do not listen to respond. Listen to understand what is being said to you. So for the younger children, you give them messages of reassurance. Say you are loved and you're valued. It is not your fault. Help is available, and so that kind of reassurance is always good. And then for children, so use simple language for children between 3 and 7. Use simple language, clear language. Explain the concept in terms of what they understand. For example, you can say to a 3 to 7 year old, "Your body belongs to you, and no one should hurt you or make you feel scared." Teach them boundaries, safe touches, encourage them to say no, and reassure them during the process. During the process, reassure them. So for all the children, introduce them to the concept of rights and abuse. Right. So know your rights. Explain that everyone has the right to feel safe and to be treated with respect. Define abuse: emotional, physical, verbal, in the age appropriate term. There is a problem in Jamaica. I realize that how parents are speaking to children, there it is being broad brush, and so there is no differentiation of age group conversation. So I realize that a parent will be talking to a 3 year old like how they're talking to a 10 or a 14 or a 16-year-old. So there has to be, difference in how you speak to these children. Empower them, and then let them know that you're going to have the matter investigated at all cost, referring the matter to the police or the other agencies that deal with uh, domestic violence in children, CPFSA, or the Jamaica Constabulary Force Domestic Violence Intervention Center.
Indeed. So you would have shared those resources earlier along with the supporting entities that work along with what we refer to as the DVI centers, domestic violence intervention. Can you talk us to just generally what they should expect when seeking help?
So when seeking help, be open-minded. Come to the centers. All right. So for example, you probably might have been abused, and you think that there is some sort of stereotype, and people will look down on you. Investigation does not is not an overnight thing, and so for the matters to be investigated thoroughly, sometimes it will be a lengthy process, but I encourage investigators to continually reassure victims, to say to them that we are investigating the matter, and so your best interest is at heart, and so you don't really take the matters personal. Can I tell you that dealing with domestic violence matters, sometimes you will take them onto yourself, because it might have been a family member or a close friend that is dealing with the same situation. And so I want to say to them, when they go to the different stakeholder entities or the DVI centers, allow the process of investigation, to the level of natural justice to take its place. Investigation takes time, and so the change or the result that you're looking for will not be overnight.
All right, well said. What role can extended family members, because it's the community now, what role can extended family members, teachers and community members play in supporting children impacted by domestic violence?
All right. So if it is that a teacher is, notice or recognizes that a child is being abused, the teacher can always report the matter to the police or CPFSA or the other agencies in Jamaica that deals with children. Can I say this sometimes that there is the culture in Jamaica of, I is not my child. I don't really care about him or her. And so it is your responsibility. Let me also say to you that if it is that you have neglected your duty of care, you're in trouble. And I saw teachers, the great responsibility is great. Family members, if you know that a child is being abused and you say nothing, you would have been neglecting your duty of care as a person. You see the situation, speak about it, talk to somebody, about it, and so that the matters can be investigated. Likewise, for families who are being abused, there's also the notion that, I I'm not I don't really business with what they're doing. Because let me tell you something. There is when I was growing up, I'm pretty young still. But when I was growing up, I realized that most times when persons go to the police station, they come to report the matter. Few minutes after, they'll come back to say, "Hey, I don't want." They just talk to him. Just talk to him. Let me just say now that we are not going to be tolerating that sort of thing. You have to love yourself so much that if it is that you come and we see bruises, we're taking the necessary steps to protect you. All right. So the Domestic Violence Act gives us the privilege of applying for protection orders for members who we see are being affected by domestic violence.
Awesome. Are there legal implications for adults who know about these children who are being abused and not say anything?
Neglecting the duty of care, neglecting your duty of care. I I will have to seek, further clarity. If there is an offense of, seeing the person being abused and not saying anything about it, I know that it is just that you have neglected your duty of care. So there is not really an offense tied around seeing it and not, saying anything, but it's just really that you're neglecting your duty of care.
All right. Brianna, we've noted your question. We'll take that in the Q&A. But as we wrap this segment, what legal protections are available for children and families in abusive situations? And how can parents ensure they're fully utilizing these resources?
All right. So let me just say that Jamaica is not short on laws. We have laws for practically everything. And so the legal protections in Jamaica, one, the Jamaica Constabulary Force has a policy that deals specifically with how matters of domestic violence should be dealt with. So the Jamaica Constabulary Force Domestic Violence Policy and Standard Operating Procedure clearly outlines how JCF members should deal with domestic violence. There's also the laws. There's also the law, the Child Care and Protection Act, the purpose of this act is to protect children under the years of 18 years from abuse and neglect and exploitation. So,
Go ahead, Corporal Brown.
oh yes, thank you, thank you. I was
Okay.
having a little issue.
Right.
All right, so that act, the provision of that act, is to it requires mandatory reporting of all child abuse or neglect by anyone who is aware of it. It gives the court authority to remove the child from the unsafe environment. And so removing the child from the unsafe environment, it is really called that it is called children who are in need of care and protection. That act also protects children from being forced into work, trafficking, or exploitation. Then we have the Domestic Violence Act. This act provides protection for victims of domestic violence, including children. The provisions it allows for protection orders to prevent abusers from contacting or harming victims. Also, it grants occupation orders to remove an abusive person from the home, ensuring the safety of the victim. Includes emergency protection for children who are directly or indirectly affected by domestic violence. And so, let me just point this out. The domestic violence laws have been reviewed and are better and is better able to protect Jamaicans, right? Jamaican victims. And so usually the fine would be $10,000. Since the amendment of the act, perpetrators of domestic violence who breach the protective orders from the court can now be fined up to $1 million and be sentenced up to 1 year in prison. And so you can be fined the $1 million and you still get the 1 year in prison. Protection all orders also now include harassment and property damage. So it is important to note offenses against the Persons Act. You have the Maintenance Act. Let me just delve into the Maintenance Act, which a lot of people don't know about. It ensures financial support for children and families. The provision of this act mandates that parents or legal guardians provide financial support for children, enforces children support payment through the court if necessary. And so those are the legal framework that really protects children and families from domestic violence. Like I said, there are other agencies that deals with, you know, assisting families throughout the process. The court hearings, you'll have shelters for them, which is nobody knows. Thankfully, nobody knows where these shelters are. So the Jamaican society have laws protect families and children.
When you say move from environment, move to where? That would be to the shelters that you just mentioned in some cases.
Yes, ma'am. Shelters.
Okay. All right. This is going to be a special forum because we have a lot of awesome information and I've been seeing it in the comments. Very informative, and we have a lot more informative information to share. So stick with us. If you have to go, remember you can come back and continue watching where you left off. So this was Corporal Brown sharing on handling domestic violence and abuse, and he makes way for our discussion on school safety and bullying prevention. Ministry of Education, Skills, Youth and Information Region 5, Safety and Security Coordinator, Angela Davidson. Welcome, Lady Davidson.
Thank you so much. And I'm really appreciative of my contribution that I make to this forum.
All right. We're happy to have Region 5. We're usually used to having Region 7 on. So we are sharing the love in Area 3.
Yes.
So it's great to have Region 5 in this space this time around. All right. So let's start, as I usually say, from a place of understanding. What forms of bullying are most common in schools today? And how can parents recognize if their child might be experiencing bullying?
Okay, I'm sure you understand that bullying has always been in the land.
Oh,
We
yeah.
get bullied at home, bullied at school, among our friends. Now, as it relates to the most common types of bullying, the very first one I want to look at is the verbal type of bullying. And you know what they say about the tongue. The tongue is the greatest or the most, it's effective. It's a weapon and it is
Yeah,
effective, whether it's good or bad, but the tongue.
indeed.
Now, when we talk about verbal bullying, we're looking at teasing, name calling, spreading secrets, and what should I say? Somebody has confidence in you and they told you something, but because of that nature you have of bullying, you're going to spread it because that makes you popular. You know things. All right. Now, the physical type of bullying is where they do the shoving and the kicking and the fighting. And you know what happens when people fight? There's excitement. Everybody wants to see who is going to win. And sometimes they give them the weapon to inflict on the other person. And so the most important one here, I think, it's most recent, I should say, is cyberbullying. And it was mentioned before, the phone. This is damaging someone's social reputation, okay? And with negative comments and posting of negative images. So that is some of the most common types of bullying. I guess there were always, except for cyberbullying, they have always been around. Yes.
All right. So, what's the best approach for parents to take when they suspect or know that their child is being bullied? How can they effectively engage school authorities?
Okay, so parents on a whole would notice the changes in their children. Yes, the attitudes, the responses, they don't want to go to school, they're having a stomach ache, they're asking for extra money for food because, of course, they're bullied out of the money, and the grades fail. They're just not communicative. So parents usually sees that these things, the changes, even in the relationship, they don't want to talk to anybody. They come home and they go straight into their room because they just want to be alone. And the bullying causes them they want to be in a corner. They don't want to interact with anyone because it is too hard, all the things that they go through at school. So how a parent can recognize if their child is experiencing bullying. And you mentioned something about authorities.
How can they effectively engage the school authorities so they know that
Okay.
they know, right? How do they effectively?
Well, it's always a very good approach to take when you are going to be going into a conversation with anyone. So you approach the authorities at school. You can't go there angry or being a bully yourself. You have to really have good conversations with the authorities because the schools, they know how to deal with these situations because they deal with it every single day. So you have to approach the authorities. And I'm really thinking about school authority now, right? Like letting them know
Yes, the
exactly.
school authority that we're referring to now.
Yes, that they're actually having problems with their children. And so they must come out, everything should be amicably done. Of course, persons sometimes become angry because it's their child that is being bullied. And so they expect that things should be done overnight and now. And you understand that some things cannot be done. It's a process. You have to analyze the type of bullying, the persons who are involved, so you can come up with ways of solving that and dealing with the situation. So parents would have to approach the authorities amicably so that we get an amicable response.
All right. So remain calm
Yes.
and just go there seeking to understand and to right. All right, so could you share some of the ministry's strategies and policies? Maybe the top two of them that help from.
Okay, because there are quite a lot.
As I know it's a long list.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I didn't have all the lists. I had some of them.
Right. So just a couple
So
of them.
some of the policies that they would come up with. All right. First of all, we have the Safety and Security in Schools unit. And this unit, is set up to provide guidance and support in all safety issues, behavioral issues. And the safety and security coordinators from that unit, they are responsible for all of the safety and security and behavioral issues in the school or in the region. Another thing that is set up is a Safe School program. As a matter of fact, we have just completed the Safe School policy, and it will be available soon. We have the Emergency Preparedness Response Plan. So there are several plans that are set up. We have plans for critical incidents, plans for general safety and security, plans for disaster. So these are provided so persons are able to tap into them. And it's mainly within the schools. And so that's why we have our coordinators and we have our deans of discipline that is there to help to maintain the discipline and to make sure that the school environment is protected. All right. Now, there is another program that we have introduced over about 5 years ago, I think, the Anti-Gang Week. And I must say that this week, we are now in Anti-Gang Week. We started with church services, and every day there's a different activity. For instance, there are workshops, concerts, town hall meetings, special devotion, which we're going to have tomorrow, all schools, and a message will be read by the Minister of Education. So Anti-Gang Week is celebrated at this time of the year. It is explaining to persons or stakeholders how to navigate these gangs and to help to prevent their children from getting involved in those. The PTA, that is a lifelong thing. Now, there has always been a problem with parents attending PTA. So what the ministry is looking at now is community PTA, where you're taking the PTA out of the school communities. We go into the communities. I must give you an example. A school where I worked, we experimented on that. We had students coming in from Trelawney, from St. Elizabeth, and so on. So we had one PTA in Trelawney, so all the persons from St. Anne and that area would attend that one. We had one at the school, and we had one in Mandeville. So it alleviated all of the issues that persons are saying they have. They don't have the money, and they have to leave work, and so on and so forth. So the PTA, the community PTA, is something that we are very excited about to make sure, because we need the parents. And for the most part, the ones we see are the ones that we really don't need to see, because we see them all the time. All right. Now, partnership with NGOs, private sectors, and government agencies, because you can't do anything on your own, because we live in the society. So we have to network and make sure we have all of the help we can get from the different agencies. We have now teaching and learning. You might be wondering, is that for protection? But it is, because teachers play a critical role in protecting and promoting classroom school safety, right? So they maintain a positive and inclusive learning environment for all the students. So they are protected. All right. Now, for the parents, we have the National Parenting Support Commission. I don't know if many persons know of this, but it's mandated to coordinate all activities related to parenting support and to develop and implement a national parenting support policy. Now, parents may get involved by simply reaching out to the schools, volunteering, because the school has the knowledge, they know the agencies, and they are able to communicate that to the parents. So those are some of the policies and that we have in the ministry. A few, this is a few of the many.
I know. We're going to have a special forum so we can get to know more about the Safe Schools program.
Yes.
But we'll get there. Right. So going back to our children now, how can parents equip their children with tools to handle peer conflict or bullying without escalating the situation?
Okay. Now, everything begins with communication. And some parents are really not able to talk with their children because this is not something they didn't get that privilege. And so they're not allowing their children to speak. The environment, made the environment open for the child to come and speak to them. So the parent really needs to talk with their children, right? Let them know that if they're being bullied or if they see anybody being bullied, that they should speak up. There should be someone that they could talk to. If they don't want to talk to their parents, they can talk to a family member, they could talk to a teacher. And sometimes, teenagers or young people, they will talk to their friends, and they're not necessarily the ones that you need to talk to because they don't have the experience. All right. So they should also let them know that, look, when you're bullied, can't let the tears come. Because when the tears come and you get angry, it empowers the bully, right? Because they feel that, yes, they're getting through with it. When I was in primary school, of course, everybody gets bullied. I would go home crying to my mother that they called me this and they called me that. My mother simply said, just call them back the same thing they call you. I don't want to tell you, I was a little afraid to do it. I did it and it works. Because there is no spark there, it dies, that the power that you have over someone. So you really have to talk. And if you can't talk, then get somebody who is able to explain to them and give them the tools that they need to navigate.
Awesome. All right. Over on Instagram, we have a comment here, had a similar experience, and I had to wait a day before approaching the authorities. I'm not sure if it's in relation to the bullying or the previous segment, but as we wrap up this segment to make room for mental health, our mental wellness rather, if a parent's concerns about bullying go unaddressed, what further steps can they take? And are there escalation options within the school system or through the ministry?
Yes. You will understand that bullying takes place mainly in school. Okay. And there are processes that, are set up. The form teacher, that will be the first level, because the form teacher would have to deal with whatever is happening in the class. If no redresses is done there, is received there, then there is the grade supervisor, the grade or coordinator that it can be taken to, or if not, it can go up to the VP or the dean of discipline, and maybe eventually the principal. So because there's so many different steps that can be taken, the escalation points, then most times it stops at a particular level. Now, if all of that fails, there is the Ministry of Education, and that is really the last resort. And I must say that some of the times when these issues are brought to the ministry, we try to allow them to go back to the school for them to deal with it, because the child has to return to school. And so it has to be dealt with. And the parents and the children must feel confident that whatever issues they have will be dealt with at school. Yes.
Awesome. All right. So that wraps our segment on school safety and bullying prevention. Don't go anywhere, Lady Davidson.
Okay.
Want you back in a little while. But Lady Davidson makes room for our final segment in the panel discussion on mental health and wellness support from the Southern Regional Health Authority. We have the Acting Regional Community Mental Health Officer, Kevin Allen, no stranger to this space. We actually did a forum focused specifically on mental health and community safety in the same playlist here. So welcome back, Sir Allen.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome, great. All right. JP Booth said, love the idea though, thinking out the box. Fantastic. So let's delve right into this now. Mental health trends. What mental health challenges are most prevalent among children and teens today, and how might these impact their daily lives and school performance? We're tying it all together now.
Well, the impact of mental health on our children, the numbers are showing clearly that major depressive disorder, anxiety disorder, and neurocognitive challenges are the most prevalent conditions that are affecting our children at this time. And as my co-host or co-members this evening who are joining this forum, sharing, would have identified in their own experience, they have outlined to us a number of the factors that are leading to our children becoming depressed. So when you look at our child guidance service, catering for our children through adolescent into early adulthood, as Corporal Brown would have explained, that they would attend the child guidance clinic until age 18, it is clear that the impact of these issues, cyberbullying, the abuse, the molestation, the sexual harassment, are all issues that are allowing our children to now withdraw from society, withdraw from participating, and move from levels of anxiety, post-traumatic stress, leading to major depressive disorder.
Wow. So with all of that, what are some early signs of mental health struggles that parents might overlook, especially the younger ones? And how can we differentiate between typical stress and something more serious?
All right. So when you look at our children, I myself as a parent, I'm understanding that a child that is 2 years, 3 years would start school, 4 years, and you are asking yourself the question, how is it that a 4-year-old child will manifest issues that are affecting them? So their eating is affected. They are not eating as they should. The things that they would enjoy eating, they don't want it anymore. Yes, their sleeping is affected. In their sleep, they're having these dreams. They're screaming, they're running out of their bed, they are not enjoying sleep. And then you look at attending school. A child will love to go to school, love to play with their friends, love to be around even their teachers. But this child has no interest in attending school, no pleasure in doing schoolwork, no need to participate in even extracurricular activities are some of the key things that you want to look at impacting our children and seeing what are the root cause. Is the root cause the school environment? Is the root cause the journey to school? Because there can be a little corner where persons hang out and their conversation, what they do, and even how the children are treated, they do not want to pass that space to go to school. So we have to be vigilant. We have to have our eyes and ears open and be alert of the small things that we deemed not necessary, but to the child, they are very important.
Indeed. It's one thing to recognize the signs, but in terms of communicating, that parent-child communication, how can parents create an open and safe space for children to discuss their mental health, especially when it comes to stress from school or social media pressures?
Be open with your child. And as Ms. Reed said earlier, it is important for you to make the time. Sit down with your child. You first need to get rid of your device. Turn off your television. Fathers, mothers, turn off the things that is distracting you first. And then say to the child, go in the child's space. Go down to the child's level. Sit on the ground with the child. Go into the child's room. Go into an environment where the child feels secure, and let the child know right before the conversation even begins, you have done nothing wrong. I'm not here to judge you. You're not in trouble. Here is an opportunity where I would like to look at the issues that are affecting you. Say to your child, share with me how you are feeling. Say to your child, can you tell me what is happening with you? Give them more than one option. Can you write it for me? Can you send me a message? Right? Send me a text. Drop me a voice note. Create different avenues for your children to express how they are feeling. Use drawing, use painting, use their emojis, but use what resource you have and express to the child that this is a safe way of allowing me to know what's affecting you, how are you feeling about it, and what help would you like at this time.
Fantastic. And if all else fails, where the parent is concerned, what mental health resources are available in Jamaica for children, and how can parents access these services? Because sometimes they prefer to talk to someone else other than the parent. So what are some of the resources?
Definitely. So the Ministry of Health Mental Health Unit, we have the Child and Adolescent Mental Health Service that is held under the Child Guidance Clinics. And as you hear that language, it eliminates any thought of we're dealing with a child that is mentally ill or madness or anything like that. The Child Guidance Clinic is providing that service to guide a child through the difficulties that they're experiencing. Is it depression? Is it anxiety? Is it post-traumatic stress disorder? I was coming in this evening and just listening to the news about our children who experienced a shooting while they were out on an excursion in their school environment. These children have available to them in Jamaica, in all 14 parishes, and in our health centers, the availability of our psychologists. So if you're in anywhere in Jamaica, you can access the Child Guidance Clinic in our major health centers and our major hospitals. You are also have access to our counselors. You have access to the social workers. Our services are built in such a way now in Jamaica that with the psychiatrists, the psychologists, the social workers, the counselors, the nurses who are experts, the mental health officers, the nurse practitioners, and supporting the team with our psychiatric nursing aides who themselves have now garnered experience and have garnered additional knowledge through training, is better able to facilitate our children in managing these areas that are affecting them. So anywhere in Jamaica, parents, children, you can have help. Also, the Ministry of Health has made available our helplines. 1-800-1-LOVE is available. We also have Speak Up, Speak Now. And our partners, Choose Life, is also on board to provide our young people, especially our teens, with the resources needed on suicide prevention, suicide information, and also to provide them with the guidelines in working social media and the other avenues where persons are influencing them to harm themselves. We're talking about cutting, burning, using different implements, pricking themselves, piercings, and using those to manage some of what they're feeling. But we are here saying to these individuals, to parents, and to our young people, help is available. It's right on your phone. It's right outside your door. It is in your community. You have the resources at hand. Come and see us. Come and see our partners. And I know the CPFSA, the Constabulary Force, we are all partnering together to ensure that our children, our communities, our adults who are potentially at risk, those who are disabled, those who might not be able to communicate in the way that they should, we have to understand that the resources are available to assist you managing these issues.
So, see, a lot of resources there. But before we even get outside of that, because even with the external help, the children still have to live at home. So what strategies can we use to, can we encourage rather at home to help children manage their mental wellness? And are there practical routines or activities that can support mental health, especially within the home space that we have some control over?
Let me say tonight that as parents, you know a lot of the things. As parents, you have a lot of information. What we are having an issue with is that we are not using the information we have. Well, parents here tonight will join the forum. They will listen, but they will still go tomorrow on their device. But I'm here to recommend to you, your children, take them for a walk, take them to the park, spend moments enjoying their laughter, tickle your children, hug your children, say to your children, I love you. Put your sons on your lap, fathers, give them a hug. Mothers, show your daughters how to love themselves, how to take care of themselves. Parents, I want to say to you tonight, I am an old school parent. Take back your child to your days of playing marble, of skipping, of doing hula hoop. Because as soon as our children are teenagers, we see them as rebellious. We see them as being they are not necessarily in need of you as a parent anymore. But I want to say to you today, if you give them the most expensive device, if you give them the gifts, all the gifts that they ask you for, if you give them all the money that you have, I am telling you tonight, parents, that all of that is not as important as you. Give your children you. Spend the time with your children and let them know how much they are important to you. In your commute in the days, find a song, sing it with your child. During their traveling back home, find a way, stop on the road, look at the rainbow, pick up flowers. But I want to say to you that you have the tools and you have the resources. But what we need to do is to start implementing them, putting them into focus. Ensure that for the month or for the quarter, you plan an activity that involves you and your children and Social media is not welcome. Bullying is not welcome. Create that safe space of love where your children will know that though the world might be putting so much on them, you are able to offer them what is needed. I see popping up right in front of me. Someone is saying, take your children on a date, take them to movie, take them to Devon House, take them on the mall. Yes, I realize that we are building up. So when you go Mandeville, there are so many malls. Then you go Maypen, there are so many safe spaces. And it is important, St. Elizabeth, there are safe spaces for us right across this country to take our children and to allow them to be safe. Parents, come off your devices and give your children you.
Fantastic. I wish I could read some of these comments, but I know that our panelists have had a long day, so we want to share as much as possible. But we definitely will have to continue these conversations. Someone is suggesting that we need to have more of these, and in the schools. The resources remain in this space. There are playlists on YouTube with all the conversations that we've been having in this space since 2021. A lot of resources there. We are putting them in bite sizes since the start of this year, so they can go and check out a 2 to 3 minutes read in the blog highlights each week on the Serenity Resource Connector website, all in different categories as well to make it easy to navigate. So please share the resources. So even though they're not here at this point, they can always go back and listen to it later on. All right, let's bring on back our other panelists. Kimia Brown Reed from CPFSA. Come back on, Sir Alan. Angela Davidson from Moe Region 5. I need to get the new pronunciation for the changes. And of course, Corporal Brown from the Domestic Violence Intervention Center. And we have some questions here. Ryland Carr, if I hear a neighbor being abused, can I call the police without them saying who made the report?
Absolutely, absolutely. I know most Jamaicans are, still afraid that whatever they report to the police will somehow find its way back into the public. I want to say to you that the Jamaica Constabulary Force is a highly it's an organization that deems confidentiality to be, one of its hallmark. And so I want to assure the public tonight that whatever information you give to the police, it is treated with confidentiality and your interest is at heart.
All right, another question here for you, Corporal Brown. Officer Brown, I think mothers out there need your help for their daughters. All right, so it seemed like we're going to be getting some requests for you to go into maybe some of those community spaces.
Right. It seems I'm ready to work.
All right. Heard that, Lady Edwards. So have your community group reach out to get support, because we have this conversation in this space, but I get several requests from different organizations, individuals asking, how can I get this person that was on your program to come in and share in this space? So feel free to reach out and we'll do the connecting so you can get the resources right at your fingertips. All right, excellent, Corporal Brown, eloquent, simple and easy to understand. All right, so you got an A+ for your delivery.
Yeah, back at school.
All right, so let's go through quickly. All right, is there a difference between a child just being hurtful and selfish as opposed to being a bully? Is it dependent on the intensity or frequency, or it is absolute? Lady Davidson.
I'm looking at the question. I don't know. It's very difficult to because somebody is hurting or is presenting harm to someone, it does not necessarily mean that the person is selfish. When you're hurting, you hit out at someone because that is how you can get to relieve all of that hurt that you have. So hurtful and selfish as opposed to being a bully, because it doesn't necessarily are the same things, right? It's like conflict and bullying. They're two different things. When you have a conflict, it is a disagreement between two persons, as opposed to a bully who wants to put harm, because that is what it does on somebody else. So the intensity, I don't know the intensity and the frequency. When something is being done to you, it seems as if it is every day. And so how do you measure the intensity, right? So it's just a situation of understanding the root causes why persons want to bully or want to hurt another person. If they are hitting out, if they're angry, or is it because they don't have an outlet? So this is their way of, getting whatever it is out.
All right. They say hurting people hurt people.
People, yes.
Right. So that is why, like some of the comments that's been shared in terms of what Sir Alan shared, that we need to make time to show them love, because they go seeking love in different ways and they're just acting out when all they need is more attention. All right. Some really engaging conversation taking place here in the comments, so you can go back. The script will be shared, the live will be shared, so once you watch, you'll be able to see the comments that were made. Very useful and insightful. Sorry for Instagram, we're not able to bring up your sharing on screen. So get rid of the stigma that's causing fathers to stop hugging their sons and telling them they love them. Mrs. Ford, thank you so much for your contribution. And thank you for those who joined us on Instagram, over on Facebook, and those who kept the comments popping here on YouTube. This forum should be part of PTA meetings. That's why we have the schools. We had a number of schools checking in. So we have a number of schools that are here, and you can share with those schools in your network so that they can have access to this information. And of course, the representatives here are open to coming into the school space, the PTA space, to share. All right, thank you so much for your feedback and your comments. And for those who would love to support us here at Serenity Resource Connector, bringing more resources to you in a format that you can go back and take the information in bite size, feel free to reach out. Across social media, the contact information is there to reach out via telephone, email, so that, or from the Serenity Resource Connector website, you can send a message so that we can get that conversation going. So this has been Community Safety and Security Forum for November 2024. Thanks to the continued partnership of Area 3 Police, comprising Clarendon, Manchester, St. Elizabeth, and our sponsor for this forum, National Self-Serve Wholesale in Maypen, Clarendon, continue to support National and the other sponsors so that they can continue to support us having these conversations that you can learn and be empowered. So we had with us sharing Kimia Brown-Reed from the Child Protection and Family Services Agency. We had Kevin Allen from the Southern Regional Health Authority. We also have Corporal Brown from the Domestic Violence Intervention Center, JCF, and Angela Davidson from the Ministry of Education, Skills, Youth and Information, Region 5. Quite a mouthful. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for making the time to share with us here. And as you saw earlier, we have people joining us from over in the UK, It's supposed to be morning or almost morning there from Canada and all over. So it's great that you're able to provide them with the information, the resources that are available. And I trust that our parents and those who joined us will not just keep the information, but as Sir Alan said, to use that information. And I always say share so someone else can benefit from what it is that we discussed here. Thank you all so much. It's always a pleasure sharing space with you. The requests are coming in fast and furious for others to come in this space. So you stay tuned for next Thursday. You want to join us. We're going to have the National Health Fund in this space, sharing all about the National Health Fund, the benefits. There have been extended benefits available, and they'll be sharing all of that, how you can access, and for those businesses that are able to go on board to provide the resources, how you can be a part of that. You are most welcome. It's our pleasure to serve you here at Sorrento Resource Connector. And as always, have yourself a fantastic rest of the night.